This broke me, but God was behind it. I didn't see it coming. Not like this. Not from the people I trusted. Not at the moment I was finally starting to breathe again. Sometimes, what breaks you doesn't come loud. It comes in silence, in stillness, in betrayal, in distance. And in those moments, you ask the question that has haunted every hurting believer since the beginning of time. Where are you, God? I asked him too, with tears in my throat and silence in return. I whispered what I couldn't say out loud. If you loved me, why did you allow this? And yet, he was never absent. He was behind it, not causing harm, but allowing a deeper healing. Not punishing me, but preparing me. Because some things only break so they can be rebuilt the right way. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. There's a closeness in brokenness that you don't get in blessings. There's an intimacy born in your tears that praise songs can't always touch. When I sat in the ruins of my pride, my plans, and my expectations, he met me, not to fix it quickly, not to explain everything, but to sit with me in the silence, to stay until the shaking stopped, to whisper things that still echo in my spirit. I'm not done with you. I'm not punishing you. I'm pruning you. And that changed everything. John 15:2. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. The cutting hurts. The breaking confuses you. The silence tests your faith. But he never wastes a wound. The moment I stopped begging for relief and started surrendering to the refining, I started healing. Slowly, quietly, deeply. He showed me that the pain wasn't punishment. It was permission to grow, to let go, to become more like Christ, to finally let him be enough. Isaiah 43:2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. He never promised ease. He promised presence. And it's in the fire that you find out if your faith was real or just convenient. When everything I built fell apart, I thought I lost. But what I really lost was the illusion of control. And in its place, I gained something I never had before. Dependence, trust, surrender. Not the kind you preach about, but the kind you live in. Maybe this is you right now. Maybe the storm hasn't passed yet. Maybe you're wondering if he's still writing your story. He is. And what broke you might just be the exact place where he'll rebuild you. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Not some things, not only the good things, all things, even this. There's a moment in every believer's journey where silence feels louder than God's promises, when prayer feels like shouting into a canyon, when your heart is aching, but heaven is still. That was me. After everything shattered, I didn't just feel broken, I felt invisible, forgotten, like I had been written out of the story. I stopped talking to people. I withdrew from community. I smiled in public and cried in private, because no one really wants to hear. I don't feel God anymore. I opened my Bible one night, not because I wanted to, but because it was the only thing left, not broken. And the page fell open to Psalm 13. Psalm 13:1. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? David's voice, not mine, yet mine exactly. He knew what I was too scared to say. It's okay to question. It's okay to ache. But he didn't stay there. Psalm 13. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. Even when he couldn't feel it, he chose to trust it. That shook me. I realized I had mistaken silence for absence. And maybe you have too. Maybe your quiet season isn't abandonment. Maybe it's an invitation. God doesn't always speak the loudest in comfort. Sometimes he speaks in the quiet, the whisper, the wilderness. Luke 4:1. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Did you catch that? Led by the Spirit into the wilderness, not away from it. Sometimes the Spirit doesn't lead you into miracles. He leads you into isolation, into fire, into stillness, not to punish you, but to prepare you. That realization changed everything. What if this silence isn't God turning his face away, but turning his attention towards something deeper in you? I started journaling my prayers again. Not because I felt close to God, but because I missed him. And slowly, through the fog, something began to stir. I realized that even in the silence, he had never left. He was just working differently, quietly, intimately, stripping away the noise, the crutches, the voices, so that when he did speak, I'd know it was him. Isaiah 30:15. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. We think strength comes from answers, but often it comes from surrender, from waiting, from trusting when there's no sign. Because faith isn't proven when everything feels good. It's proven when everything feels gone. And you still stay. I learned something else in that season. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is sit in the tension. Not run, not distract, not force resolution, but sit. Let your questions breathe. Let your tears fall. Let the silence shape you. Because in that space, God is near, closer than your breath, present in your ache. And you may not see it now, but one day, you'll look back and realize this quiet season was sacred. It wasn't a delay, it was a deepening. Maybe that's where you are now, not abandoned, not rejected, but invited into a silence that purifies, into a stillness that restores, into a breaking that births something eternal. Ecclesiastes 3:7, a time to be silent and a time to speak. This is your time to be silent, to listen, to be still, and know. And one day, he will speak. And when he does, you'll know it was worth every tear, every unanswered question, every long night, because he was never gone. He was only quiet, so you could finally hear. Faith is easy when prayers get answered, when doors open, when peace flows. But what about when it doesn't? When your prayers return unanswered? When you doubt your own voice, let alone God's? That's the battlefield no one preaches about. Not losing your faith, but losing the strength to hold on to it. I remember sitting on my floor, Bible closed, worship off, eyes hollow, whispering, God, I believe, but I'm tired. And somehow, I knew he heard even that. Even when my faith didn't sound like a declaration, but a whisper, a flicker, a groan too deep for words. Romans 8:26. In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us. He meets us where our strength ends. That verse broke something open in me. I didn't need to perform faith. I didn't need to impress God with my endurance. He wasn't disappointed by my weakness. He expected it, and he met me there. 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Perfect, not just visible or active, but perfected in my lowest place. It flipped my whole theology upside down. Maybe I didn't need more strength. Maybe I needed more surrender. Maybe the point wasn't to climb out of the valley, but to discover who was sitting with me in it. The truth is, what I thought was failure was formation. God wasn't waiting for me to snap out of my pain. He was using it, not to condemn, but to clarify. Not to harden me, but to hollow me out so he could fill me with something I couldn't create on my own. Real dependence, real trust. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Let that sink in. My flesh may fail, my heart may fail, but God never does. When everything collapses, he remains, unshaken, present, steady, and slowly, I started to see something in my brokenness I never saw in my strength. Him, not just the idea of him, not just sermons about him, but the person, the heart, the presence. In that fragile faith, he taught me something I couldn't learn in victory: how to breathe in grace, how to sit in the mess without fixing it, how to look at my reflection tired, weak, confused, and say, "Still, I choose you, Lord." It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't loud, but it was holy. And maybe that's where the real transformation happens, not when you climb the mountain, but when you worship at the bottom of it, unsure if you'll ever reach the top. If you're there now, if your faith feels like a flicker, don't shame it. Don't run from it. Because he doesn't need you to be strong. He needs you to be honest. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. Not what we feel, not what we understand, but what we hope for. That's enough. That's faith. And it's in those hidden places where no one sees you clinging to hope that he builds something unshakable. Not performance, not perfection, but perseverance. And that kind of faith is forged in fire. Looking back now, I see what I couldn't see then. The breaking didn't bury me, it birthed me. I thought God had let everything fall apart to punish me, but he wasn't tearing me down. He was tearing down everything that couldn't hold me. Everything that looked spiritual but was built on fear. Everything that looked strong but was built on self. He broke what had to break so he could build what would last. Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? That's the question I keep hearing. Do you perceive it? Because it's easy to focus on what's missing, what's broken, what's lost. But what if what God removed was the very thing keeping you from what's next? The wilderness I thought was punishment became preparation. The silence I thought was rejection became refinement. The pain I thought would break me became the very place he rebuilt me. And I didn't just come out of that season the same. I came out emptied of pride, filled with hunger, humbled, softened, aware of his voice in ways I never was before. I no longer needed answers. I needed him. And I found him not on the mountaintop, but in the ache, in the breaking. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. It's not a metaphor. It's a promise. If you're crushed, you're close. Don't despise your brokenness. It's the ground where intimacy grows. I know this now. Sometimes the greatest mercy God can give you is not answering the prayer you begged for. Because he sees what you don't. He's not just protecting your future. He's preserving your soul. You may have lost what you thought you needed, but you didn't lose him. And if you have him, you're not behind. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Romans 5:3-5. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame. You are not being punished. You were being formed. You were not forsaken. You were being led. You were not destroyed. You were being redefined. And now you carry a different kind of faith. Not just Sunday morning faith, but fire-tested, valley-born, storm-surviving faith. You know what it's like to pray through tears, to worship without answers, to choose trust when nothing makes sense. That kind of faith shakes hell. That kind of faith changes rooms. That kind of faith moves God. This is not the end of your story. This is the foundation of your next chapter. Let him finish what he started. Don't rush the healing. Don't despise the silence. He is not finished. You are not forgotten. The pieces you thought were wasted, he is weaving them into something glorious. 2 Corinthians 4:16-17. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Eternal glory. That's what's coming. So hold on. Even if it's by a thread, even if it's with trembling hands, hold on, because what broke you is the very thing God will use to rebuild you. And this time, it will be unshakable.